one-of-a-kind movie star. Please welcome Samuel L. Jackson.
Me was, thinking about my career and thinking about, why I wasn't oh poor me.
It started like any other talk show until it didn't. One sly question, one cold stare, and suddenly the air turned electric. Tamron Hall thought she was running the interview. Samuel L. Jackson reminded her who she was talking to. By the time it was over, the internet had already crowned a winner. The cameras were rolling, the audience was smiling, and Samuel L. Jackson looked every bit the legend. Cool suit, calm presence, that quiet confidence.
Good morning, my brother.
Good morning.
Do you like getting up this early first and foremost?
I'm up this early every day.
I don't want to, lord it over you because you see me or I'm famous. I'm famous because you think I'm famous.
Look at that, you was born 20 years before the Civil Rights Act in 1964.
So 48.
Yeah.
That says he's seen it all before. He was there to talk about his new project, nothing more. But Tamron Hall had other plans. Her tone was light, her grin practiced, but the words behind it cut like glass. 74, or is it 75 now? She joked, leaning back like it was harmless fun. The crowd laughed, but not comfortably. It was that uneasy kind of laugh, the kind that happens when people sense the lines just been crossed, but no one wants to be the first to admit it. Jackson didn't flinch, didn't even blink. His stare stayed locked, calm, measured, almost too calm. You could feel the tension shift through the studio. The applause signs dimmed. The lights suddenly felt colder. The energy that once filled the room had been replaced by something sharp and heavy, like everyone collectively realized they'd just seen a live mistake. Hall tried to push through, changing her tone, pretending nothing happened, but the air didn't move. Then she went for it again, this time questioning his relevance in Hollywood. The moment the words left her mouth, even she seemed to realize it was a mistake. The silence that followed was brutal. Jackson leaned forward just slightly, looked her dead in the eye, and said it, calm, controlled, final. Do your homework. And just like that, the room froze. It was only 3 words, but those 3 words hit harder than any monologue, any insult, any viral mic drop in talk show history. Do your homework. Calm, sharp, delivered with the precision of a man who's been underestimated his whole life and learned to turn moments like this into lessons. The audience didn't know whether to clap or stay silent. Some smiled nervously, others just stared. The sound techs froze mid-adjustment. It wasn't the kind of silence that needed to be filled. It was the kind that demanded to be felt. Hall forced a quick laugh, the kind that cracks at the edges, and tried to steer things back to safe ground. But there was no going back. The dynamic had shifted, and everyone watching knew it. Jackson wasn't being petty. He wasn't angry. He was teaching. That look in his eyes, steady, unbothered, said everything. He'd seen this move before. A host fishing for headlines, testing his patience, hoping for a viral reaction. But this time, the trap flipped. The internet wasn't laughing at him. It was laughing for him. Clips of that exchange exploded across TikTok within hours. Do your homework became a rallying cry, a meme, a moment of pure dominance. While other celebrities might have stormed off or fired back with rage, Jackson just let the silence speak for him, and somehow that made it louder than any shout ever could. But this wasn't the first time he'd been tested, not even close. Within hours, the moment had outgrown the studio. That single exchange, 3 words, 1 stare, was now looping non-stop across TikTok, YouTube, and X. Different angles, captions blazing in bold font, millions of people replaying the exact second Tamron Hall realized she'd lost control of her own show. Hashtags like hashtag do your homework and hashtag Samuel L. Jackson energy flooded timelines like wildfire. Everyone had an opinion, but only one narrative stuck. You don't come unprepared when you're sitting across from Samuel L. Jackson. Comment sections turned into war zones. Some viewers called it a masterclass in composure. Others said it was career suicide for her. Every tiny micro-expression was analyzed like a crime scene photo. The raised eyebrow, the twitch in Hall's smile, the way Jackson's silence seemed louder than her laughter. Suddenly, this wasn't just a talk show clip. It was a culture moment. Even media insiders joined in. Reporters dissected the power dynamics of respect, while fans remixed the clip into edits set to Pulp Fiction dialogue and Marvel music. Jackson's face, calm and unbothered, became the internet's new definition of dominance. And while Hall's team scrambled to control the narrative, Jackson didn't post a thing. No apology, no statement, nothing, just silence. Because when you've built your career on commanding attention without even trying, you don't chase the noise. You let it come to you. But this calm wasn't random. Jackson's control under pressure came from somewhere deeper, something forged long before Hollywood ever came calling. Long before the fame, before the billion-dollar movies and the internet memes. Samuel L. Jackson was a kid in Chattanooga, Tennessee, a place where survival wasn't about talent, it was about toughness. He grew up in the Deep South during segregation, where every street corner was a reminder that the world wasn't built for him to win. But instead of breaking him, it sharpened him. That edge you see on screen, it was forged there. One cruel rule, one racist encounter, one quiet act of defiance at a time. As a child, Jackson battled a brutal speech block that turned every classroom into a battlefield. Words wouldn't come easy, and kids laughed when he tried, but instead of shutting down, he turned language into a weapon. The words they told him not to say became the ones he mastered best, his signature blend of sharp wit, rhythm, and attitude. Cussing, for him, wasn't rebellion. It was control, power, expression, the start of a voice that would one day shake movie theaters around the world. He carried that grit all the way to Morehouse College. There, he didn't just study acting, he lived revolution. He was chosen to serve as an usher at Martin Luther King Jr.'s funeral, standing inches from history. Just months later, he was expelled for leading a protest so bold the FBI showed up at his mother's door. That's who he was before Hollywood ever touched him. A fighter who learned early that respect isn't given, it's taken, and that lesson, it never left him. By the time Samuel L. Jackson hit his early 20s, he wasn't just chasing a dream, he was challenging a system. Morehouse College had given him more than an education, it gave him a cause. The civil rights movement was reaching its boiling point, and Jackson wasn't watching from the sidelines. He joined protests, organized sit-ins, and demanded answers from those in power, even when it meant risking everything. He wasn't looking for headlines, he was looking for change. That defiance got him expelled, branded as dangerous by the establishment. The FBI knocked on his family's door, warning his mother that her son was stirring up trouble. But what they called trouble was really transformation. Every march, every risk, every time he stood up when it would have been easier to stay quiet, it all built the foundation of the man the world now knows. And that's the thing about Jackson. The fire you see in his performances isn't manufactured, it's memory. Every glare, every pause, every perfectly delivered line drips with the conviction of someone who's already faced real-life villains long before he met any on-screen ones. That unfiltered honesty carried straight into Hollywood. He didn't just bring characters to life, he brought truth to the table. The same truth that made people uncomfortable back then still does now, which is exactly why, when Tamron Hall tried to test him decades later, she wasn't facing a celebrity, she was facing a survivor of every fight that built him. But his biggest battle wasn't with critics or cameras, it was with himself. Before the awards, before the billion-dollar blockbusters, there was chaos, the kind that doesn't make headlines until much later, the kind that leaves a man lying on his kitchen floor, barely breathing, surrounded by the wreckage of his own choices. For Samuel L. Jackson, that moment wasn't fiction, it was real, a blur of tequila and crack, a life that had slipped out of control so slowly, he almost didn't notice until it was nearly gone. His wife, LaTanya, and their young daughter found him there. That image, one that could have ended everything, became the breaking point. Jackson entered rehab not out of motivation, but out of necessity. He didn't want to be there, he didn't want the help, but discipline, the same trait that had carried him through the South in protests and rejection, refused to die. 28 days later, sober for the first time in years, fate threw him one last test. His first role after recovery, a crack addict in Jungle Fever. Every trigger, every memory, every demon right in front of him. Counselors begged him not to take it. They said it was too dangerous, but Jackson looked them dead in the eye and said he'd play it and stay clean for life. And he did. That performance wasn't just acting, it was exorcism. The irony, that role, the one everyone warned him about, became the one that saved him. It wasn't Hollywood magic, it was raw redemption, the rebirth of a man who refused to die quietly. But recovery wasn't the end, it was the beginning of an empire. When Samuel L. Jackson walked out of rehab, he wasn't just sober, he was reborn. Hollywood didn't know it yet, but it was about to meet the version of him that couldn't be broken. The hunger hit different now. He wasn't chasing fame or approval, he was chasing purpose. And the universe, almost like it had been waiting, started opening doors. First came Jungle Fever, that raw, haunting performance that made even the critics stop and stare. It wasn't acting, it was truth on camera. Then Spike Lee, seeing something electric, brought him in to Do the Right Thing and School Days. That spark caught fire fast, but the real explosion came when Quentin Tarantino saw him. Tarantino didn't just cast him, he built a character around him. Jules Winfield in Pulp Fiction, the swagger, the scripture, the rage, the calm. It was all Jackson, distilled into one unforgettable role. That single performance turned him into a cultural force. Suddenly, he wasn't auditioning anymore, he was the audition. Bruce Willis called him for Die Hard with a Vengeance. George Lucas handed him a lightsaber. Marvel made him the glue that held an entire cinematic universe together. No other actor could shift between blockbusters and indie films, villains and heroes, with that kind of effortless command. He didn't just come back, he took over, from a rehab bed to ruling box offices across the world. And yet, even after rewriting what a comeback looked like, Hollywood still made one mistake. They underestimated him again, and that mistake would become legendary. It was 1995. Pulp Fiction had just changed cinema forever, and Samuel L. Jackson sat in that auditorium, suit sharp, confidence higher than ever. Everyone knew he'd earned it, the award, the recognition, the moment. But when the envelope opened and the words Martin Landau echoed through the room, the camera cut to Jackson's face. No fake smile, no polite clap, just a quiet, sharp whisper caught by millions of viewers. One word that said everything. That night wasn't a loss, it was ignition. Hollywood had underestimated him again, just like they always had. But Jackson didn't sulk, he didn't disappear. He turned that rejection into fuel. While most actors would have faded into bitterness, he used it to go faster, louder, and bigger. Every role that followed carried that same same energy. The unspoken "you'll regret that." The Academy might have snubbed him, but audiences didn't. They lined up for Jackie Brown, Unbreakable, The Incredibles, Snakes on a Plane, and every Marvel movie he touched. Each film another reminder that legacy isn't built by trophies. It's built by time, by impact, by dominance. Years later, when the Academy finally handed him an honorary Oscar, it didn't feel like an award. It felt like an apology. Too late, too quiet, too small for what he'd already accomplished. But Jackson, he accepted it with that same knowing grin, because he didn't need validation from a room full of voters. He already had something far stronger proof. And that's why, when Tamron Hall tried to question his relevance, it didn't just feel insulting. It felt familiar. And this time, he wasn't about to let history repeat itself. Tamron Hall thought she was chasing a viral moment. What she didn't realize was that she'd just walked into one she couldn't control. Behind the scenes, whispers were already circulating. Ratings were dipping. Producers were desperate for buzz. The show needed something, anything, to trend. And on that day, that something turned out to be Samuel L. Jackson. Her plan seemed simple. Push boundaries, stir tension, maybe catch a soundbite that would light up social media. But she misread the room, and worse, she misread the man. Jackson wasn't some out-of-touch celebrity clinging to relevance. His relevance, his face, his voice, his legacy are woven into the DNA of Hollywood itself. You can't bait a legend who's already seen every trap the industry has to offer. As the clip went viral, insiders started talking. She wanted the moment, one producer allegedly said, but she didn't realize she was the moment. Fans flooded her socials, calling the interview tone-deaf, arrogant, and career suicide in real time. For every viewer defending her, 10 more were posting memes of Jackson's stare, captions reading, "This show won't outlive me." And the irony, she gave him another viral victory. The very thing she wanted for herself became another addition to his mountain of iconic moments. Another reminder that while talk shows chase relevance by the week, legends like Jackson created by the decade. But the real storm, the one that turned this interview into Hollywood history, was still coming. When the camera stopped rolling, the air in the studio was thick enough to cut with a knife. Jackson didn't yell, didn't storm off. He just moved with precision, calm, control. Every step felt deliberate, like a man making sure the message landed. He unclipped his mic, looked straight ahead, and set it low enough for only the closest cameras to catch. "This show won't outlive me." That line hit like a thunderclap. No script, no theatrics, just truth, pure and unfiltered. The studio fell silent. No applause, no outro music, no fake laughter. The silence itself became the soundtrack. Seconds later, clips of that walk-off exploded online. Fans paired it with scenes from Pulp Fiction, Django Unchained, even Nick Fury montages. The internet crowned him king again. Meanwhile, Hall's team went into damage control, PR statements, edited clips, all too late clarifications. But it didn't matter. Jackson's calm destruction had already burned into pop culture. He didn't need to explain himself. His presence was the explanation. Decades in Hollywood, countless billion-dollar hits, and still untouchable. That's the power of Samuel L. Jackson, a man whose face snakes at 30,000 feet, Jedi with glowing swords, and now daytime television, and won every time. His silence speaks louder than any headline. His composure cuts deeper than any clapback, because legends don't need to prove they're still relevant. They just remind you why they always were.